The red keep trembled with each distant explosion, stone groaning under the weight of its own legacy. Jaime Lannister limped through the ruin, a trail of blood behind him, his golden hand glinting under the dim light of collapsing corridors. His ribs ached, his mind swirled, but his goal never shifted. Find Cersei. He had promised her once, long ago, that they'd leave this world together, that they would die as they came into it, together, as one. It was a promise he had repeated. Like prayer, the only thing that had ever felt real in a life built on lies, blood, and betrayal. But everything was different now. He found her beneath the keep, just as he'd expected. The room was thick with dust, and the ceiling above them cracked and crumbling. Cersei turned the moment she saw him, her face streaked with ash and tears, her hair wild, her hands clutching her belly like a fragile secret. "Jaime," she whispered, voice trembling, "we have to get out. The tunnels—" He moved closer and she stopped speaking. Something in his eyes, maybe. Or maybe it was the silence. Not the silence of fear, but the kind of stillness that comes before something shatters. He looked at her, not as a queen, not as his lover, not even as the sister who once ruled his every thought. He looked at her like a man seeing a stranger for the first time, the woman who burned the world to keep her throne, the woman who ordered the deaths of children, who lied and schemed and used love like a blade, the woman who had become the very thing he once swore to kill when he stabbed the Mad King. She was the Mad Queen now, and he had known it for a while. He just hadn't wanted to admit it. "I loved you," he said softly, his voice almost lost in the groaning of the castle above. "Gods help me, I loved you more than anyone ever should." Cersei's smile faltered. "Then help me escape," she said. "We can still get out. We can still—" Jaime reached for her and she ran into his arms. It felt like every memory collided in that moment. Childhood laughter, shared secrets, stolen nights. Her head rested against his chest like it always did. For a second, he wanted to forget everything, just hold her. Pretend the world wasn't ending, but the sword was already in his hand, not ice, not widow's wail, just a plain steel dagger he'd taken from a dead soldier in the hall above. No ceremony, no speeches, just steel and silence. When she felt it slide in, her body stiffened, the blade pierced just beneath her ribs, fast, clean, merciful. Her mouth opened, but no words came. Just a short, stunned breath. She pulled back to look at him, confusion spreading across her face. "Jaime." His eyes were glassy, not with hatred, but regret so sharp it could have cut stone. "I can't let you go on," he whispered, voice thick with pain. "You've done too much. You've hurt too many. I should have stopped you years ago." Tears rolled down her face, blackened by soot. Her legs buckled. He caught her gently, lowering her to the stone floor. "I did it for us," she gasped, blood already pooling around her. "Everything I did was for us." "No," he said. "You did it for power, and I let you." Cersei's eyes lost focus as her breath rattled. Her lips moved, but no sound came. Just a final soft exhale, as if she was trying to say his name or curse it. He held her until her body went still, the rumble above growing louder. The red keep was collapsing, and Jaime, Kingslayer, Oathbreaker, brother, lover, betrayer, sat beside the woman he had loved and killed. He had broken every vow he ever made. This was the first one he kept. He sat there longer than he should have, cradling her like she was still alive. Ash coated her hair, blood soaked her dress, but Jaime couldn't let go. Not yet. The walls groaned overhead. The earth shook again, and somewhere above, the throne room might have collapsed already, but he didn't flinch. Cersei was gone, and he had made it so. It didn't feel like victory. It didn't feel like peace. It felt like nothing. He pulled himself up, joints screaming with effort, and looked down at her one last time. Her face, even in death, was stubbornly regal. That damn pride still clung to her bones, like the crown she was never meant to wear. There was no time for burial, no tomb, no tears, only fire. He limped out of the crypts as the ceiling began to fall in behind him, dust chasing him through the collapsing passage. He didn't even look back. Maybe part of him hoped the stones would take him too, bury him with her. But the keep wasn't done with him yet. Outside, the city was unrecognizable. Blackened ruins, bodies in the streets, a mother clinging to a burned child. Bells still hung in the air like a haunting echo. The sky was a thick grey, glowing faintly, orange with the fires that had not yet died. He had to keep moving. Somewhere out there, the rest of the world still breathed. Jon Snow, Daenerys Targaryen, Tyrion. The name hit him harder than the wound in his side. Tyrion had begged him to get Cersei out. He thought Jaime was going to save her. Save them. Both gods. What would he say when he found out the truth? Would he understand? Jaime wasn't sure he even understood it himself. He'd come to Cersei hoping to die with her. But in that moment, looking into her eyes, he saw something darker than death. He saw what she had become, what they had become. And he chose the realm, not because he was noble. He never had been. But maybe, just maybe, this one act could count for something. Maybe a lifetime of sins could be lessened by one impossible choice. He made his way toward the outer walls, leaning against stone, slipping through the chaos like a ghost. The pain in his side had grown worse, throbbing, burning. He was losing blood, fast. Each breath was a fight, each step a gamble. When he reached the edge of the city, he saw them. Northern soldiers, a few unsullied. Daenerys's banner still, waved above the carnage, torn but proud. He ducked into the shadows of a ruined alley. If they saw him, they'd likely kill him on sight. He was still a Lannister, still the man who slept with the queen they'd come to overthrow. He wasn't ready for that end. Not yet. He needed to find Tyrion, not for forgiveness. He didn't deserve that. But the truth had to be told. Someone had to know what really happened in those final moments under the keep. Someone had to know she hadn't screamed. She hadn't begged. She just looked at him, trusting he'd die. With her, and he didn't. He wandered for hours, hiding between crumbled buildings, slipping past patrols. Once he collapsed behind a burned-out cart and nearly didn't get up. The fever had started. He could feel it rising in his chest, crawling into his mind like smoke. By the time he reached the place where Tyrion had last been seen, near the outer edge of the dragon pit, night had fallen. The fires were still burning, and Jaime Lannister, the man who once pushed a boy out of a tower, who broke oaths and hearts with equal ease, collapsed against a wall, unsure if he was dying or simply done running. In the silence, he whispered her name, not with love, not with hate, just with the weight of everything they'd ever been. The morning after the city burned didn't feel like a new day. It felt like the echo of a funeral no one wanted to hold. Tyrion stood at the edge of the ruins that used to be the Red Keep. Smoke still rose in lazy trails from cracked stone. Rubble stretched as far as the eye could see, and the stench of scorched flesh lingered in the air. He had barely slept, and when he did, all he saw was Cersei's face. Not her smug, condescending smirk, but the version of her that still lived in his memory, the little girl who used to braid Myrcella's hair and giggle when she thought no one was watching. He hated that he still loved her, even after everything. His heart clenched with the weight of it. He'd begged Jaime to save her. That was the deal, the final mercy, and now there was no sign of either of them. Tyrion walked the rubble-strewn path alone, past broken bricks and shattered statues of lions, all twisted by heat and time. When he reached the entrance to the crypts, he stopped. Buried, crushed, lost forever. He closed his eyes, bit down on the inside of his cheek and whispered, "I told you she'd be the end of you." But he was wrong. Jaime didn't die with her. He killed her. A faint voice called out behind him. Weak, hoarse, barely more than a whisper. Tyrion. Tyrion froze. His eyes shot wide as he turned, and for a moment he thought it was a ghost. But it was him. Jaime. Bloody. Pale. Barely able to stand. His shirt soaked through in red. His golden hand dull with grime. His face was a cracked mirror of the man he once was. Broken, but still holding on. Tyrion ran to him without thinking. He threw Jaime's good arm over his shoulders and dragged him to what was left of a bench under a half-standing arch. What in the seven hells happened to you? Tyrion hissed, eyes darting across his brother's wound. You look like you crawled out of the stranger's arse. Jaime chuckled, but it turned into a cough. Felt like it. Where's Cersei? Jaime didn't answer right away. Tyrion's grip on his shoulder tightened. Jaime, where is she? He looked up, eyes glassy with something more than pain. Guilt, finality. I killed her. Tyrion blinked once, then again, like his brain had misheard. No, you didn't. I did, Jaime said, barely audible. I was going to die with her. I meant to, but I saw what she was. I saw what we became, and I knew I had to stop her, even if it meant... You stabbed her. Tyrion's voice cracked. She didn't. Scream, Jaime whispered. She just looked at me like she trusted me, and I... Tyrion stepped back, as if the confession hit him like a blow to the chest. You were all she had left, he said, voice trembling. You were supposed to save her. I did, Jaime muttered, in the only way left. Tyrion's eyes welled up. Not just for her, not just for Jaime, but for everything they had destroyed. Family, loyalty, love. It was all ash now. I don't know if I can forgive you, Tyrion said softly. Jaime nodded. I don't want you to. They sat in silence for a while. The sun rose higher, casting gold on the wreckage. A city once proud was now only memory. A legacy of fire and blood. Jaime's breathing was slowing. His eyes fluttered. Tyrion looked at him and asked, Do you want me to find a Maester? Jaime shook his head. Let it end here. And then he pulled something from his coat. A pendant, gold and lion-shaped, Cersei's. He placed it in Tyrion's hand. Tell them, he murmured. Tell them I did one thing right. Then his head tilted back, and he exhaled one last time. Tyrion stared at his brother's body. The Kingslayer. The Kinslayer. The man who lived for love and died from it. And somewhere in the distance, a dragon screamed. Tyrion stood over his brothers, corpse until the light faded from the sky. There were no prayers, no last rites, no banners draped over Jaime Lannister's body, only ash, cracked stone, and the bitter silence that came after all the fires had gone out. His hand clenched the lion-shaped pendant, so tightly it left a mark in his palm. He thought about burying him, about digging through the rubble to find stones soft enough to move, enough to cover a Kingslayer's bones. But his body was too broken, his soul too tired. Jaime deserved better. So did Cersei. But war never gave the dead what they deserved, just silence. By morning, Tyrion approached Daenerys in the shadow of the ruined dragon pit. She was radiant and terrifying, draped in black with fire still reflected in her eyes. Grey Worm stood behind, her like a statue, expressionless. The Unsullied watched Tyrion with hands on hilts, ready for any excuse. He didn't bow, didn't kneel, didn't speak until she raised a brow. "Well?" she asked, her voice steady but sharp. "Did you find them?" "I found my brother," Tyrion replied, his voice hoarse. "And the Queen." He met her gaze without flinching. Dead. For a brief second, her eyes flickered. Whether it was relief, satisfaction, or disappointment, he couldn't tell. She didn't ask how. She didn't need to. She assumed the fire or the collapse took her. Let her believe that, Tyrion thought. But his silence had a weight of its own, I warned you, Daenerys said, stepping forward, her voice tightening. You freed him. You betrayed me. You gambled your life on love, and look what it cost. I know what it cost, Tyrion said. Lo, I buried the cost with my own hands. Daenerys stared at him, waiting for him to defend himself, to beg. He didn't. What would you have done? Tyrion asked suddenly, stepping closer, surprising even Grey Worm. If it were your brother beneath the Red Keep? If it were Rhaegar? Daenerys's jaw clenched. You speak of justice, and yet there's no justice in this, Tyrion continued, motioning toward the blackened city. Children burned in the streets, innocents choking on smoke. You didn't break the wheel, Your Grace. You set it on fire. Grey Worm moved, but she lifted a hand, stopping him. What would you have me do with you? She asked. Kill me, he said, if that's the price. The air between them pulsed with tension, but she turned away, her voice cold. You will answer to the realm, not just to me. She walked off, and Tyrion was dragged to a cell by two unsullied. The pendant never left his hand. He sat in that cell for hours, maybe days. Time blurred. Every breath brought more questions. Had he done the right thing, hiding what Jaime had done, or had he betrayed both his siblings in the end, one by setting him free, the other by hiding the truth of her death? But he couldn't bring himself to say it. He couldn't tell the world that Jaime Lannister, the brother who once shoved a child from a tower, had died not a hero, not a villain, but something in between. A man who killed the only person he ever truly loved. Would they understand? Would they care? The door creaked open one night, and Jon Snow entered, shadowed and quiet. They say she's dead, Jon said, voice low. Cersei? She is. No one knows how. Tyrion looked up at him, and no one needs to. Jon's brows furrowed. He killed her, didn't he? Silence. Tyrion finally nodded. Why? Because love isn't always salvation, Tyrion whispered. Sometimes it's a disease, and he was finally ready to be cured. Jon sat beside him, resting his head against the cold wall. Neither of them spoke for a long while. Outside, King's Landing tried to rebuild itself. Inside, the last Lannister lived with a truth no one wanted to hear. The dragon wings stretched above Daenerys as she walked up the stone steps of what was left of the Red Keep. The throne room was gone. Nothing but ruins remained. Molten pillars, broken arches, the iron bones of a dream that had burned with the people below. But she stood there anyway, looking out at the scorched city like it still belonged to her. A queen with no crown, a ruler with no throne. Only fear, loyalty, and the fire behind her. Jon stood beside her, silent as a grave. I did what I had to, Daenerys said without turning. They would have never accepted me, not while Cersei lived, not while any trace of the old world remained. Jon didn't answer, his hand clenched at his side. He hadn't asked about the children, about the women who screamed beneath Drogon's shadow. He hadn't asked because he already knew. He'd seen it in her eyes that day when the bells rang and she rode anyway. She wasn't the girl from Dragonstone anymore. She's dead, he said finally. Cersei and Jaime, both gone. Daenerys nodded. Tyrion will stand trial, not for them, but for what he did to me. Jon looked at her then, really looked. There was no joy in her face, no relief, just cold purpose. The fire that once drove her now ruled her. He saw it, he feared it, and he knew deep down she would never stop. Meanwhile, Tyrion sat in his cell, staring at the stone wall as if it could give him answers. He hadn't slept. Not really. The pendant was still in his hand, warm now like it had become part of him. The image of Jaime's face haunted him. The way he slumped, the way he whispered, "Tell them I did one thing." Right. And Tyrion hadn't told anyone, yet. The door creaked open again, but this time it wasn't Jon, it was Arya. She stepped in like a shadow, eyes sharp and unreadable. She didn't sit, didn't blink. "I heard your brother's dead." Tyrion looked up. Is that what the ravens are saying? She nodded. And your sister, too. Collapsed tunnels, they say. Crushed by the kingdom they tried to hold. He almost laughed. The irony of it all. I know it's a lie, Arya added quietly. Tyrion raised a brow. You have that look, she said. The look of a man choking on a truth. He didn't answer. She stepped closer. You were in the crypts. You saw them. You know. He exhaled slowly. Jaime killed her, quick, clean, no bloodbath, just mercy. Arya's expression didn't change. And you buried it. He met her gaze. What would the truth do, Arya? Drag his name through filth one last time? Let Daenerys use it to show how far her enemies fell, how justified her fire was. You want to protect him. To protect him. No, Tyrion said. I want to protect what's left of him. Arya didn't argue. She understood secrets. Sometimes the truth was a weapon, and sometimes it was poison. What are you going to do now? She asked. Tell the world. Tyrion shrugged. Let the Fire Queen make a martyr out of me. Arya turned toward the cell door. She's not going to stop, you know. Daenerys. She'll burn anyone who doesn't bend. I know. Arya paused at the door. You should decide soon, Tyrion, whether you want to die with your secrets or live with the truth. Then she was gone. And Tyrion sat in the dark with Jaime's pendant in his hand and fire creeping closer. Every hour he could stay silent, let history write its lies, or he could burn everything down one final time, this time with words. The square outside the ruined Red Keep was full by noon. It wasn't the crowd you'd expect for a royal trial. There were no silks, no gold, no courtiers or smiling nobles. Just ash-covered survivors, tight-lipped, unsullied, a few wary Dothraki, and the small, broken people of King's Landing, all staring toward the cracked platform where Daenerys Targaryen stood in judgment. Tyrion was dragged out in chains. His beard was rough, his tunic stained with blood, sweat, and grief. But his eyes were sharp, alert, calculating. Daenerys raised a hand, silencing the uneasy murmurs in the crowd. Tyrion Lannister, she said, her voice cutting through the air like a sword. You stand accused of treason. You released your brother, the enemy of the realm. You conspired to subvert justice. Do you deny it? Tyrion didn't answer immediately. He scanned the crowd and saw Jon standing among the unsullied, arms folded, jaw tight. Arya lurked in the shadows to the left, eyes fixed on him like knives. Even Davos was there, quiet as a prayer. He looked back at Daenerys. I don't deny it, he said, voice strong. I freed my brother, and I would do it again. Murmurs rippled. Daenerys narrowed her eyes. You admit it. Then you admit your betrayal. I admit I chose humanity over loyalty, he snapped. You burned children in the streets. I saw them, charred, clinging to mothers. You gave no mercy, and now you expect it? Grey Worm took a step forward, but Daenerys held up her hand. Your brother, she said slowly. You claim to have found him. And Cersei. I did. She tilted her head. And how did they die? The question dropped like a blade. Tyrion took a breath. He felt Jaime's pendant in his palm, hidden in his sleeve, warm from his grip. The weight of it felt heavier now. He looked into Daenerys's eyes, those burning violet eyes, and he knew this was it. He could lie. Let history have its convenient version, or he could do what Jaime never had the courage to do. He could tell the truth. Jaime killed her, Tyrion said, voice loud enough to carry. He drove a blade into her beneath the keep. He looked her in the eyes and ended it. Gasps spread across the crowd. Daenerys blinked. He killed Cersei? Yes, Tyrion said. She would have fled, she would have escaped, and she would have kept fighting you, killing more, burning more. He stopped her. Not to save you, not to save this city, but because for the first time in his life he saw who she really was. Silence. The square was dead quiet. Jon looked stunned. Arya tilted her head, unreadable. Grey Worm watched Tyrion like a man already measuring a grave. He could have run, Tyrion continued. He could have died with her. He chose something harder, something uglier. Daenerys stepped closer, voice like smoke. And why did you hide it? Because the truth doesn't change who he was, Tyrion said. He still loved her, he still bled for her crimes. But I thought, maybe I could keep just one part of him clean, just one thing. Her eyes flickered with something unreadable. You think this truth changes your fate? No, Tyrion said. I expect to die. She turned, cloak whipping behind her. But at least now, Tyrion said, raising his voice, the world will know that not every Lannister died a coward. That stopped her, and for a long moment Daenerys said nothing. Then she looked to Grey Worm. Take him back to his cell. He obeyed. As the crowd parted and Tyrion was led away, he caught Jon's gaze. The young Targaryen looked shaken. Not just by what Tyrion had said, but by the knowledge that the last honest man in King's Landing might be the one in chains. And as the sky darkened with smoke again, Tyrion whispered to himself, I did it, brother. You won't be remembered as a monster. That burden's mine now. The wind howled through the ruins of the Red Keep as Jon Snow stood at the foot of the tower where Daenerys had made her new seat of power. Above him, Drogon slept curled in, smouldering rubble, one eye half open, smoke rising from his nostrils. The city still stank of death. The cries had quieted, but the ghosts had not. He'd heard everything, Tyrion's confession, the truth about Jaime, the silence from Daenerys after he couldn't sleep, could barely breathe, because he knew, just as Tyrion knew, that the war wasn't over. Not truly, not until someone stopped her. He climbed the tower with leaden feet. Not because of fear, but because part of him still wanted to believe there was another way, that the girl he had followed across oceans could still be saved from the fire she had become. Daenerys stood alone at the top, framed by blackened stone, her white hair flowing like a banner of ash. She looked at the city with something that almost resembled awe. This is only the beginning, she said when she heard him approach. We will liberate them all. Jon stared at her. And if they don't want to be freed? She turned slowly, her face aglow with purpose, not remorse. Then they don't deserve to rule. We will build a better world, clean, untainted, unafraid. And what happens to those who remember the old one? He asked. What happens to Tyrion, to the north, to anyone who doesn't kneel? Her smile faded. They will follow, or they will burn. Jon's heart cracked in two. You sound like him, he said. Like who? The Mad King. She flinched, her eyes darkened. I am not my father. But you've killed more than he ever did, Jon whispered. For a moment, neither moved. The only sound was the wind pushing through the bones of the broken keep. You're afraid, she said softly, of what it means to love someone who can change the world. I'm not afraid of loving you, Jon said, stepping closer. I'm afraid of what I'll become if I keep standing beside you. Daenerys looked into his eyes, and for a heartbeat, the storm within her softened. Her hand reached for him gently, tenderly. We were meant to rule together, she whispered. You and me, fire and ice. I wish that were true, he said. Then he kissed her, not like a lover, but like a farewell. She leaned into it, unaware, until she felt the blade. She gasped, her eyes wide, lips trembling against his mouth. I'm sorry, he whispered. She staggered back, blood blooming between her ribs. Her knees buckled. He caught her as she fell, just like Jaime caught Cersei in her final breath. Only this time, it wasn't mercy. It was justice. She died in his arms, a queen without a throne, a conqueror with no future. Drogon's scream split the sky moments later. The great beast landed beside her body, nuzzling her with confusion, then fury. Jon stood still, his sword lowered, prepared to be turned to ash, but Drogon didn't burn him. Instead, the dragon turned its fire toward the Iron Throne, what was left of it, and melted it into nothing. Then he took Daenerys in his claws and soared into the clouds, disappearing into legend. Jon dropped to his knees, covered in blood. He had saved the realm and destroyed himself. Weeks later, Tyrion was released from his cell to face the council. Bran the Broken had been named king by consensus. Sansa ruled the north independently. Arya sailed west. The wheel hadn't broken, but it had cracked. Jon was sent to the Wall, exile, not death, because even now the realm feared another war if they killed the last Targaryen. Before Tyrion left the city, he returned to the crypts. What was left of them? He placed the lion pendant on a stone, beneath the rubble where Jaime and Cersei had once ruled, once loved, once burned. "You died as you lived," he murmured, "together and apart." He turned and walked away, the last of the Lannisters fading into a world that no longer needed them, and so ended the story of the man who killed the woman he loved, and the woman who became the fire he could no longer follow. What if Jaime killed Cersei himself? Now you know, a tragedy, a mercy, a choice, and one the world would whisper about for generations.